of April. Tiff and Kate, success coaches, are still here with their advice on coping with depression. It's Tuesday, it's our health half hour, and you have been divulging nicely. And before we were talking about the physical and mental aspects of dealing with depression and steps you can take yourselves. Now, during the break, you were talking to Nikki and I, and you were mentioning about language and focus.
That's right, yeah, because we all have an internal chatterbox, that little voice that's kind of almost commenting on everything that we're doing in life. And when we pay attention to that, it's interesting to hear what are the words that we're saying to ourselves, how are we kind of motivating ourselves or not motivating ourselves in our approach to life. And one of the ways we do this is we can say things like, I feel depressed. And that may be true, it may be a statement of fact, but actually in terms of how it's motivating you, it's not going to be doing you a whole lot of good. You'd be much better to be saying things to yourself like, I could do with more energy.
Right.
Because automatically what you're doing then is you're focusing on what it is that you want rather than the state that you're in right now. And these may seem like very trivial things that you can be doing, but they have a really, really big impact.
Is it not sugarcoating?
It really isn't sugarcoating. I mean, if you think about it now, if you think about how you would feel if you said, I feel depressed, if you think about that for a second, and then think about if you say, I could do with more energy. There's literally a different feeling that goes along with those words. And so it is, to a certain extent, it's a small step, but it's a small step that makes a really big difference.
The language you use with ourselves is really important, isn't it? Because we can work to our own detriment, can't we, by putting doubt on our own capabilities, the way we're feeling. So it's really key, isn't it, that we try and turn it around and find a positive spin on whatever we might be feeling at that moment in time.
Yeah, and pay attention. So sometimes, you know, when we make a mistake, listen to the words that you say to yourself. You know, do you say, oh, I'm so stupid? Yeah. Because actually, would you speak to your best friend that way? You know, and you are your own best friend, so it's much more important to say things like, okay, I made a mistake, you know, I'll move on from this, I'll learn from it. It's much more empowering than to be saying to yourself, you know, I'm stupid and I'm worthless or anything like that. So again, just really focus on the language and being positive to yourself.
Well, Kate, how do you sustain that focus? I mean, when your mind's all over the place, you're trying to kind of keep track of what's rational and what's irrational. How do you kind of keep on that line?
Well, what we would say to people is the important thing to remember is every thought, including the kind of words that Tiff was just talking about, you're actually programming yourself for whatever's going to happen next. Your unconscious mind takes all of these thoughts as being a request for more of the same thing. That's why it's a big difference, the words that you use. In any situation, no matter how black it might look at first glance, you know, and there'll be folks watching this right now who are dealing with some really challenging stuff, and it's real for them, is there is always something to focus on, something to find that you can feel a little bit better about. And you see, it's like we were saying just before the break. You're not looking for something that's going to get you from depressed to happy. You're looking for something that's going to give you a tiny feeling of relief from whatever you were feeling a moment ago. That's all you're reaching for, is a feeling of relief. You know, so if people who woke up to yet more snow this morning, some people will be looking at that and going, oh great, going to take me ages to get to work, it's cold, it's damp, it's miserable. You could equally look at that and say, isn't it beautiful? And won't the kids be chuffed to bits, and so on. And for people who feel like they haven't got a lot to be happy about right now, it might even be that they've got a TV to watch this on. It might even be that their eyes are working right now and they've got ears to hear this with. So it's just literally reaching for a thought that feels a little bit better than the thought you were feeling a moment ago. What happens then is you get a bit of momentum and more thoughts like that, and it becomes the snowball rolling down the hill, you're picking up speed, and before you know it, you're in a much, much better place than you were a short time ago.
Well, ladies, sort of a generalised question to the two of you. How important is the support network around people that may be suffering from depression, especially for people who may be battling this by themselves?
You had Dr. Duran on before talking about obviously the importance of getting support, and obviously we'd suggest to anybody that if they are suffering from the symptoms of depression that they seek medical advice. But as you said, there are other ways. That you've got your friends network, and then you have got these alternative complementary therapies. You've got things like life coaches, or the work that we do as success coaches is all about supporting people on their journey and helping them to get to a place where they feel better.
And that's one of the reasons why, of course, it's so damaging when people do withdraw in the way that Nick said. because it then becomes like a vicious circle that you're in. So those tiny steps to make a bit of a connection with somebody, however briefly, even a stranger at the bus stop, is getting you on the right track of staying, you know, and surround yourself with people who are feeling a little bit more upbeat. But instead of bemoaning the fact that you're not and wishing that you were, which spirals you back down, it's just saying, looking at them and saying, thank you for that example, that's where I'm heading.
Okay, so small steps, but what I think is really key from all the chats is that there is loads of help out there.
Absolutely.
And it's important to be able to speak, but whether it's complete strangers or whether it's people in your family and friends
Just
network.
ask.
Tiff and Kate, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Details have been on the screen, so if you want more information, then please don't hesitate to contact them. Time now, though, for latest traffic and travel with Michelle.